Hey church, Jeff Wright here, founding pastor. Last week we began a series of short vignettes to describe the journey of our church family over the past 30 years. Our new congregation bounced around a bit, worshiping in a school gym, an athletic facility, a dance studio, until we found this property and the Disciples Central Rocky Mountain region bought it for us. Yeah, several dozen Disciples churches in our region paid for our land. Talk about generosity. But designing and constructing and paying for our first building was up to us. Barbara Albert and Deanne Fredrickson were key players in helping lead us through that part of our journey. They'll tell you more.
I think that's what the excitement was all about, because we were nomads and that was getting hard. I started with Heart of the Rockies from the very first day, and we set up chairs and we set up banners.
And they were a nightmare to put up.
To try to make wherever place we were at a spiritual place and a place for worship. We really were determined to get a full building, just our home that we weren't going to get kicked out of, and we weren't going to have to set up every day. And so I think that's what really motivated us to make sure that we got what we needed in order to see the growth of this church and to see things nurture and grow.
I think I was 28 years old, 27 years old when I signed that mortgage paperwork, and it was terrifying. We had an idea of what it was going to cost to move into this building, and I knew how many members of our congregation there were, and I had divided that huge number by the members, like the number of families, and so I knew what Corey and I's share of that mortgage was. And let me tell you, Corey and I did not have that kind of money.
At the time, the church had $21,000 in our checking account.
We got our loan from the Board of Church Extension, and they had come and visited our congregation about a year before we went through this whole mortgage loan process. And so when the Church Extension people came, I'd ask them, can we, on a side conversation, can we actually really afford this? And they said yes, and I just kind of leaned into that and trusted them.
When we were first starting to decide now, how big of a building do we need, and what are the uses that it needs to have in it? And that was kind of an overwhelming question. And so we just went to each committee and just asked them. We asked them to just dream big about what it is you'd like to see in this building. What do you need in order to do your ministry?
I was the last one to sign the mortgage. I had to go down to the office. And they put me in this room with all the legal books on the side. And I remember signing that and thinking, I am so young. The rest of our board was also super young. And I just couldn't believe the rest of the congregation was trusting us with this decision.
We really had to be really careful about how we used our space and make sure our space was really very meaningful.
I remember exactly where I was standing when we turned over the first shovelful of dirt, like the first shovel before you start to build. I remember where I was standing on this property.
It was such a fun time to watch those tiny little children try to turn over a spade of dirt.
Jack Kruger was and there was a couple of other men too. We called them our sidewalk superintendents, and they came here on a regular basis, if not daily, to see the progress and to check in and see how the crew was doing. I believe it took seven or 8 months for the construction.
And then we had a mortgage burning here in our parking lot, and there was a group of us. We stood around the little fire pit, and we had the mortgage and threw it in there. It smoked up. It was very exciting. After all of those years of moving chairs every Sunday and setting up tables, and people worked so hard to make a space to worship in, and then to come here and have this space and have it be ours, and then really think about, if we didn't have to pay this mortgage every month, what could we do with that money instead? Was pretty amazing.
It's really fun to be able to do this again, a second time. So that's exciting.
It's amazing to think of all the memories other people will have built here too, and how important and sacred one piece of ground can become.